Welcome. You are at the Metropolitan Planning Council's Commute Options Roundtable, making the case for commute options. So hopefully you're in the right place at the right time, and I think you are. This is one of a series of roundtables that MPC conducts over the year. We hold these lunchtime policy discussions that relate to programs and projects that we're working on, generally timed with critical stages of our work. This one in particular really marks the end of a 2-year pilot program that you're going to hear quite a bit about today, where MPC's orchestrated a commute options program with 16 employers in the region. And again, you'll hear much more about that today. I'm going to briefly turn the microphone over to our sponsor for this event today, Globetrotters Engineering. We're joined today by a number of representatives from Globetrotters, but Mike McMurray, the president of Globetrotters, has a few opening words.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon. As Peter mentioned, I'm Michael McMurray, and I am president of Globetrotters Engineering Corporation. And as the sponsor of today's event, I'd like to thank you all for coming out today. We're proud to support the MPC and his work to solve some of Chicago's most pressing challenges, because like MPC, Globetrotters is in the business of providing innovative solutions to its clients. For MPC, it's the Chicago region, and one of the problems Chicago faces today is the extensive congestion of its roadways. And for instance, I was surprised to learn that congestion costs the region $7.3 billion annually in lost time, fuel, and environmental damage. To start, that's a pretty shocking number, but this concerns me for a number of reasons. As an architectural engineering design consulting firm, Globetrotters offers services that includes transportation and construction management. And so we design and build highways, roads, bridges, all with the idea of the user in mind. And ideally, we like you to be driving on those and not sitting idly in traffic. And as a company with more than 200 professionals based in Chicago, we understand the demands of commuting to and from work every day and that effect on our employees. MPC's Commute Options pilot was developed as a strategy to address and tackle the challenges that infrastructure faces and presents the challenges that residents also face. Providing such a solution involves bringing the right people together, engineers, construction, local leaders, business, and so on. Fortunately, MPC does a wonderful job of coordinating and connecting such stakeholders to come with pragmatic and innovative solutions. This is evidenced by the panel of experts we have with us today. And in a bit, they will explore how instituting programs and strategies to change commutes and have impacted employees and companies in the Chicago region. But it's truly great to see so many of you here today who are similarly interested in hearing the results from this pilot program and in learning how other cities have benefited by advocating and implementing alternative community programs. And again, I just think this is so important. But with that, let me introduce and give you back to Peter Scosi, Executive Vice President of the Metropolitan Planning Council. Peter.
Thank you, Mike. And again, thank you so much for your support today. Mike, I think you might have grabbed the top page of my comments there. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Oh, no, we're not at that point yet. I'd also like to thank ICF International of Fairfax, Virginia, for contributing towards the cost of today's lunch. Thank you very much for that support. Divvy Bikes is an in-kind sponsor today with one-day bike passes. In addition, the following organizations have provided materials in your swag bags underneath your chair. We have gifts from U.S. Equities, Chicago Water Taxi, and Pace Suburban Bus. We put those underneath your chair so you don't need to rattle around with them during the program. They are a little bit noisy. But do stay tuned at the end of the program for some special news about those bags. Ooh, the suspense is killing you. Also at today's meeting, I wanted to recognize a few special guests. We're joined by Joe Costello, the Executive Director of the Regional Transportation Authority. Thank you for joining us today, Joe. Also several other members, Heather Tabrick, Kevin Stanchill, I see in the audience. And also there's a couple of members of MPC's Commute Options Working Group that are joining us today. I saw Chris Roebling earlier. I believe we're going to be joined by John Toohey, who's also with ITW, also a Commute Options partner, and Mark Bookman from Ernst & Young. So those advisors from MPC's board and committees have been helping and instrumental to us in structuring the program that you're going to learn about today. Tim Grezakowski should stand and take a bow. Tim. And Tim's really been the driving force behind this program over the last 2 years, and also with some able support from a number of our good research assistants. Cecilia Gamba is coming back to us, the winner of our T-shirt contest. Well, congratulations, Cecilia. Kevin Hollick and Jeff Nullish are also here and have been supporting Tim in his work. We will get to our three panelists in just a moment, and I will give you some introductions on them. But first, I just wanted to cover a couple of quick slides about the program and the work we're doing. You heard Mike mention already the high cost of congestion that we face in this region annually, $7.3 billion wasted stuck in traffic. Well, that's certainly not a good thing, and we'd want to fix that. In addition, though, between 1990 and 2008, the drive-alone rate in the region increased from 46% to 51%. So an additional 5% of the people were driving alone to work every day. Not a sustainable trend, not something that we want to see continue into the future. So in 2010, the Civic Consulting Alliance, as part of the Chicago's Climate Change Action Plan, looked at TDM programs across North America, and they found that really employers are a great way to reach employees and begin to change some of this behavior and provide some of the options. And indeed, that's what MPC embarked upon a couple of years ago. We worked with 16 employers, 2 of which are on the panel this afternoon, 9 suburban, 7 city, a whole host and a different variety of them. The descriptions of them, or at least their names, are within your book that is in our newly published report that is also on your seat. They range from Webb DeVlam, which is a small design firm in the West Loop, to larger employers like McDonald's Corporation in Oak Brook, Underwriters Lab in Northbrook, Loyola University in Chicago. We learned through the course of this project that from pre-survey surveys and then post-surveys with those same employers, that the drive-alone rates actually dropped by 10% once these series of programs or interventions were implemented. So that's pretty good news. Another interesting finding from the results of the survey was that there was a 5% increase in the awareness of pre-tax benefits for transit. I'm sure the RTA is happy to hear about that. However, there were a lot of employees that were still unaware that their firm even offered a pre-tax benefit. So there's a lot more work that we need to do in that regard to raise awareness about that important program. We'll hear later from representatives from URS about other programs that take place around the country. And really in our report, we're going to talk about a recommendation for our region to embrace a commute options program at the regional scale and how we can roll that forward. We started with the report or started earlier in the process saying that we need a regional, mode-neutral organization that can run a commute options program or contract with a third-party provider to do so. And we went through a number of options within the report or within the process of the project to consider relevant participants or relevant actors in that, and really sort of zeroed in on the RTA as being the most likely candidate to run a pilot program here in this region, and really for IDOT to look at how they could oversee that program and learn from it and expand it into other regions in the state. So that's really going to be the next steps of our work moving forward, and we welcome all of you to participate and help with that if you like. And again, subsequent to the release of this report and these recommendations. So I'm going to flip to the proper point in my notes and quickly introduce our panelists. We have 3 great speakers this afternoon. Their bios are on your handouts, so I won't go into great depth of their personal bios, but we have Dave Kleinwachter, with the engineer and chair of Christopher Burke's Commuter Initiatives Committee, will be telling you the story from Christopher Burke Engineering. Headquartered in Rosemont, Illinois, Christopher Burke is also on MPC's board, so they're a great company in many ways. Kate Ganser Hayes is the trade marketing supervisor at Goose Island Brewing Company in Chicago. I assume Goose Island is a household name. Everybody's heard of Goose Island? Anybody want to admit you haven't heard of Goose Island? Goose Island's a great partner in a lot of ways to MPC. They're sponsors of our Think and Drink series. Next Tuesday, we have Candy Chang speaking here in this very room, and we've worked with them on a couple of other projects as well. And then Jennifer McNeil Dodwall is sitting in for Tom Cherney, who is probably this very moment on the Orange Line coming in from Midway. He was a little delayed in travel. So if he arrives before we get to that point in the program, they're going to quickly swap seats. So I'm going to now turn it over to David, who's going to give you some information about Christopher Burke's Commute Options program. David? And then
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Hi. So first I want to thank MPC again for letting us share our story. I'm Dave Kleinwachter. I work with Christopher Burke Engineering, but we're part of a larger partnership, there we go, called the Burke Group, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The reason that I'm here today personally is because I'm one of the biggest bikers in the company. I ride consistently about 4 days a week, 16 miles each way, so get awesome exercise all winter long, and truthfully, I haven't even had a car for 3 years now. Living in the city, it's really easy to get around, and having the support with this Bike to Work program that I'll be talking about in a little bit, it's really a great thing to have. So about the presentation, first I'm going to talk about the TBG background a little bit. The meat of the presentation will be the commute option strategies that we've implemented and how we analyze that. And then I'll wrap it up by telling about our future efforts. So TBG, the Burke Group, it's 11 different design firms, mostly engineering, but we have site services, construction, other type of related engineering services. 270 employees, 168 of those are with Christopher Burke Engineering, which is who I'm employed. And the red dot you're seeing on the map here is our office location. And as you can see, we are surrounded by pavement. It's just a spaghetti bowl of highways, tollways, U.S. state routes, Illinois state routes. It's easy to see why people commute by car. It's accessible basically every direction. And so this is a map that MPC put together for us. It's based on employee living locations, and the green represents density, so the darker, the more people that live there. And in this case, the red circle actually represents a 10-mile radius from our office. So the main takeaway from this is that 82% of employees live more than 10 miles away. We have people that live as far as Wisconsin, a couple people that are in Indiana. Most people are downtown in northwest suburbs, but not close is the idea. And so TBG put together this Commuter Initiatives Committee, which I'm very happy to be a part of, and with the sole purpose of studying commuting behaviors and ultimately becoming a less car-dependent office. And the reasons are simple: employee health, wellness, monetary savings, but we also want to demonstrate our commitment to the environment. We care, and we want to show that, I guess. So we came up with 5 different commute option strategies, is what we call them, and we implemented them sort of one by one to our employees to sort of make them stick in better, rather than bombing them with everything. So we thought it'd be a little bit more effective going through one by one, and that's how I'll introduce them to you today. The first one, we partnered up with iGo, who is now owned by Enterprise, but I believe they still go by the name iGo, car sharing. And it's been one of the biggest changes our company's ever seen. We started out with 85, well, they were company vehicles, but they were also used for personal use. And we whittled that down to just 5 iGo vehicles that are only for business travel. So those are kept at the office all day. people come, no matter how you get to the office, you can use an iGo during the day for meetings, if you have a client pickup, if you have documents to drop off. It's got this really convenient online reservation system, mobile app that you can just 2 clicks away and you can reserve your time slot. It's been really, really a big change for the company, and it was just one way that we tried to address when people get to the office, they can do still their daily tasks without their own personal car. The Bike to Work program is another program that we installed. Our employees actually earn 75 cents a mile that they commute. And that's right out of Chris Burke's pocket. There's no grants, there's no, this is purely our own initiative. We have quarterly cycling giveaways. We give away saddlebags, lights, reflectors, everything you need. There's an annual bike giveaway, so the rider with the most miles every year wins a bike. Can't win it twice in a row, unfortunately. We've got indoor and outdoor bike storage, shower facilities, which that's really the key to our Bike to Work program, is that I can keep my suit and tie at our shower facilities in the locker room, get all sweaty on your bike there, and then just change and be ready for your work day. So that's really a huge part of our Bike to Work program. Everyone's, I'm sure, familiar with Divvy. That's our bike sharing program here in the city now. So we offer corporate memberships for that, which is a discounted rate for our employees. We've worked with the Active Transportation Alliance. They've given us maps. We use them for resources for our employees. Basically anything the employee needs, we assign these bicycle ambassadors that we try to kind of personalize each person, and we find the safest routes for them. We're really pushing the Bike to Work program. We also have fleet bikes. That's not a bullet point up here, but fleet bikes, just people donated. We have 10 of them that if you don't own a bike, well, we have it locked up downstairs. So feel free to take it home, take it to the train station, lock it up. It's first come, first served basis. We also have this emergency ride home program, which is just another way that we're sort of trying to address people's concerns with the reasons that they're driving to work. Well, what happens in case of an emergency? So we have emergency ride home. All you do is call this cab service, give them your employee number, you get a free ride home, no questions asked. I mean, everyone's got illnesses or family emergencies. Maybe you just work late one night and you don't feel like riding your bike and you're not comfortable, at midnight. So, and we also had, so PACE had this pre-existing program with they call it the van pool, I think. And we just sort of tried to encourage that to all of our employees. I think it's a minimum of 4 people. They get similar schedules that live near each other, carpool together. PACE supplies the van, and there's a low monthly fare. The idea is that the fare is much lower price or much lower cost for them than traveling alone. And you'd be sacrificing a little bit with that, with your time, I'm sure. But that's one of the things that we try to encourage. And then public transportation. Most people knew about the options they had. But, I mean, if you're driving to work 5 days a week for the last 10 years, it's really easy to forget. We have 4 metro stations within 3 miles of our office. We have a Blue Line station within a mile. There's numerous bus routes. So we sort of just remarketed all of the options to our employees. We also have a pre-tax benefit program. You can set aside up to $245 per month pre-tax that can be used for qualified commuting expenses. And again, we have the fleet bikes available that we encourage employees to take to the train station if that helps them out, so that they're not driving to work alone. So those were our commute option strategies. Now I'm going to talk about how we tried to implement them. First, we did targeted marketing efforts, company-wide emails. We did a lot of lunch and learn presentations. MPC came in. Tim talked to our employees and sort of explained all what was going on, redid those commute option strategies. We had iGo representatives come in, talk how to use their cars, what their system's all about. local bike shop experts, just in case someone doesn't know how to change a flat tire, and that happens, general maintenance tips. And then we actually went around to every employee and we sort of asked them, it was just on a personal basis, what are your challenges? What's keeping you from not using public transportation? So new hires, we assign them a commuter advisor and walk through training for our IGOs. And everyone, as just an additional perk, we offer commuter breakfast monthly basis just for if you use public transportation, here's your little mini bonus. Get a breakfast. And so TBG established a partnership with MPC, and through collaboration, MPC developed 2 different surveys, part of their Commute Options pilot program. The 2 surveys were tailor-made to those commute option strategies that I just introduced. And there was 18-month gap between the 2 surveys. The first one was used, what we're calling the pre-survey. It was just to sort of establish the baseline of where we stand. And then the second one was used to see, between those 18 months, have we made any progress? And so the pre-survey, we got the results back, and most of the stuff we already knew. Most employees live more than 10 miles from work. 80% of employees drive to work 5 days a week. That's not surprising. A lot of people were completely unaware of the pre-tax benefit program, and most people thought that they would not be able to change their commuting behavior. And so 18 months later, we implemented all of our commute option strategies, and we did the second survey, and we're pleased to report that we had a 9% decrease in single occupancy car trips. For a company of 270 employees, it's pretty great. And that's despite the fact that there's a 6% increase in employees who live more than 10 miles from work. We also had increased biking, walking, and transit use. So the left pie chart is the pre-survey. The one on the right is the post-survey. You don't have to read the legend. The blue is the drive-alone car uses. We're trying to reduce the blue, and we did it. We doubled the biking numbers. We doubled the transit numbers, quadrupled walking numbers. We do have employees that walk to work. It's a small gated community about a half mile away. And so that's really great. The top graph here is awareness rates of some of our programs. 99% awareness of the Bike to Work program, so we really pounded that down their throats, I guess. 97% on IGO cars, and our pre-tax benefit program is 64%, and that was up from 39% in the pre-survey. MPC's told us that that's actually one of the highest awareness rates that they did out of all of their commute options pilot, all the 16 companies. Something else that's important about this is between the 2 graphs, the emergency ride home is the blue, and 83% of the people are aware of it, but only 2% needed to use it. So that's sort of another good thing that we're looking at here. We still have barriers. People aren't taking transportation for travel time. They need to use a car for other locations. Sometimes their schedule, if they're really, really early in the morning, really late at night, doesn't always work, and it's still inconvenience for people. 31% of survey respondents could be persuaded to use the IGO service more often if there was more vehicles. So that's also a telling number. And here's just a couple extra facts about our IGO and Bike to Work programs. 83% utilization of the IGO, 850 trips just this year. And the Bike to Work program, the numbers are really remarkable. We have 66 employees that have participated in the last 4 years, 15,000 one-way trips, 209,000 miles. For anyone who cares, that's 9 times around the earth. I mean, if you don't even have to look at the numbers, the graph just keeps going up. So I think we're onto something here. And again, I'm an avid biker. It's really all thanks to TBG, all of the incentives they offer. Just kind of exactly that little push that I needed to get me going, and then from there on, it's kind of just inertia. Once an object's in motion, it stays in motion. So that's what we're hoping to do for all the rest of our employees. I've been completely converted 100%. It's just biking is what I now choose to be my mode of transportation. If all of our incentives were stripped away, I would definitely bike to work every day, still, no questions asked. It's really been enjoyable, keeps me healthy, and environmentally responsible, and that's the most important thing. We've also received a lot of media attention. CNBC, CMAP, MPC, all recognized us in certain articles. League of American Bicyclists, Active Transportation Alliance. We even got our own television appearance on ABC 7, which is great. So, triumphs, we reduced car usage, and that was one of our goals. And one of the things that we realized was that the PACE rideshare program is kind of, it has more potential in the future. We had 0 employees sign up for it, and that maybe is a function of the density. Maybe it's not dense enough. Maybe we're just not a large enough company. Maybe gas prices will spike in the future and it'll be a better option, but for right now, it's not. So in the future, we're looking to address a couple things. There's 18 employees who live within 5 miles of the office, and ironically, those are the people who are not using any of the all of our commute option strategies, which in our opinion is the easiest. So we're going to focus on them. We're considering additional IGO vehicles. From the statistic I said, 31% people could be persuaded if there were more vehicles. And what you see here is our last mile plan. It's just, this is the physical part that we're trying to change. It's the way that we're looking at the big picture. We're trying to expand to our community a little bit. We've been working with the Village of Rosemont, and CMAP is developing their comprehensive plan, which includes potentially bike lanes, pedestrian facilities, safe crossings, things like that. Just if our employees are using the Blue Line, it would be great to know that there's a perfectly safe way for them to walk to our office. Sorry. And so the moral of the story with us is that if we want transformation to happen, it's not going to happen overnight. There's no magic bullet. As an engineering company, this, at least implementing the infrastructure, is really a subject near and dear to us. That's our expertise. And engineers are by trade very literal, sequential thinkers, so getting people to change, we can change the infrastructure, but really it's the habits and behaviors that we have to change. And that's not easy for engineers, at least.
You said it.
So my office is trying to lead by example. We want to be the shining star for offices around us, have everyone follow our lead, hopefully start implementing their own programs and hopping on the bus. So again, we really value our relationship with MPC. They helped us establish all of our goals, and they aided us through this process. So we really hope to continue making these forward strides with them in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. So you'll hear a lot about Divvy today. I did, if I failed to mention, there's also Divvy passes in your bags. Those are there as well. We had a T-shirt giveaway to those who tweeted their transit arrival to this roundtable. And again, I mentioned Cecilia was one of the T-shirt winners. Who were the other ones? Anybody? I know there were 2 others, so maybe they're in the rest. Oh, I see a hand. I'm not looking at a hand. Wait, there he is in the back. And you've all, come on up, you can make your way up. And you also heard about Divvy here. I know Kate's going to tell us a little bit more about Divvy and Goose Island. So Kate Ganser-Hayes with Goose Island Brewery. Here's your clicker.
All right. It works. Happy Friday. Thank you for having us here today. We're excited to talk to you about what we're doing at the brewery and the incredible opportunity we had with MPC to take it to the next level. So real quick, for anyone who doesn't know who we are, because I don't assume that people do, I just want to tell you a little bit about Goose Island Beer Company. We were established in 1988, and actually a brew pub. This is when the craft beer industry was in its infancy. The brew pub's still there and operating in Lincoln Park, and it was very successful. We were able to expand at a second brew pub up in Wrigleyville, and then move to a bottling facility in, I believe it was 96. At that point, it was a 50-barrel brewery, and we've grown that, and now it's at least 75,000 barrels brewed. We have, at the time of the first survey, we had 100 employees, and about 90 lived in the city of Chicago. We're up to about 115 now. We have 4 locations, essentially. We've got the 2 brew pubs. They did not participate in this study, so they have additional employees. They would have thrown us off because they all bike to work. So, and then we have the Fulton Street production facility, and then down the street we have administrative offices where our marketing and HR and accounting are. And it's a very relaxed work environment. There isn't necessarily a start and close to business. You have, aside from production, which has its own sort of more rigid schedule, but people who have more office-type jobs are coming in anytime from 7 in the morning till 10 in the morning. They're leaving between 3 and 7. And so it's a lot of in and out at different times for commutes. And that affected our ability to do some things like carpooling. It's also a very relaxed work environment. As you can see, this is pretty much what you'll see everybody wearing if you come in, jeans and T-shirts. Sustainability is very important to Goose Island. It's so important, it's in our mission statement. We've done several things to try to further that goal of ours. One is our Green Line Pale Ale, which is a beer that we created as a result of a carbon footprint study we did on our #1 selling beer, 312. We were able to reduce the carbon footprint by making several changes, including it's kegs only instead of bottles. I'd be happy to tell you more about that if you want to see me afterwards, or Ian Hughes is also here, and we love to talk about Green Line. Or we could go share one. That'd be good, too. And one of the great things that came out of the Green Line project is that a lot of the sustainability initiatives that we'd started in the brewery got kind of a jump start, and we were able to do a lot more capital projects and production things to make the facility more green. We're really involved in the community. We're part of the Brewers for Clean Water, we support the Natural Resources Defense Council, lots of local environmental organizations, things like the Evanston Green Ball, Friends of the Forest Preserve. There's a long list. The reason I'm here today, something I'm very proud of, is our environmental sustainability team. That's a group of employees we try to have someone from every department in the company. These are people who don't have a background in sustainability. I think Ian is our first person who does. People who are coming from accounting, marketing, production, and we're sort of leading that culture change, or that continued culture in Goose Island of sustainability. So we have a lot of employee engagement programs, lunch and learns, field trips. We participate in a lot of cleanups, like you'll see the picture there of the neighborhood cleanup. That's the alley behind our brewery. And I think that one is maybe Montrose Beach, but that's World Environment Day. And we've led the company in taking some of the steps towards some of the larger sustainable projects, putting information out there, agitating for change. And we are the ones that brought this opportunity to the company. We had been working on getting people to take more sustainable commutes. We had a program that we did every year that was a month-long initiative. So it was a contest between the 2 brew pubs and the main facility, trying to get people to change their commute. If someone will try a different commute option, they might realize it's not that difficult. It's not that inconvenient. Hey, I like this better. So if we could get people to try that, we could maybe get people to do a more green commute on a regular basis, or a semi-regular basis. We called that our Green Steps program. Well, it'd been pretty successful, but we wanted to take it to the next level, and we didn't know how to do that. When the Metropolitan Planning Council came to us with the Commute Options program, this was the answer. It gave us the data and the information we needed to get our employees what they needed to be more sustainable. So the pre-survey we did in July 2012, we had 94 employees respond out of 100. Yeah, I heard that was a pretty good response rate. And we got the results back for the Metropolitan Planning Council in August so we could jump into making some changes. What was the secret to our employee participation? I'm going to tell you. Pizza. We sent out the pre-survey by email, and we had the usual suspects respond, the people we expected would, and it was very low response rate. And then we had a pizza lunch brought in, and then we had the people on the team stand by the door, and you could not enter. You could smell the pizza, but you could not enter unless you filled out a paper version of the survey. It was very successful. For the employees that are off-site, we have sales and education people in several different markets. They got more of a personal touch. Basically, every time they called someone on the committee for something they needed business-wise, the conversation ended with, "Have you filled out that survey yet?" And it just became easier to do the survey than to not do the survey. For our production employees, we had to use a sort of different form of communication. At that time, with the amount of pressure on them, any message that wasn't related to increasing production kind of got lost in the shuffle. So especially anything revolving around employee engagement was getting lost. So we did a few things. One, we printed out paper copies. So instead of asking the management team just to filter the message down, we approached those employees directly. Those paper copies had to be in English and Spanish, so everyone felt very comfortable with the information they were getting. We made sure that everyone knew that this wasn't something that management wanted to know how they got to work, and they were going to use that information somehow, that this was an employee-led initiative to just find out how people get to work. And we put this sounds so low tech, but it worked. We put a box in the break room with the surveys there. And so after we'd kind of introduced the idea, and we did the pizza party to shift change too, so that helped. But after we'd introduced the idea, the people we missed, several of them filled out the survey later because they had heard about it. And so that trust and that comfort level was there. So a few things we learned. The questions didn't work really well for our off-site employees. If we did this again, I might consider maybe 2 versions of the survey, because we've got folks who are working from home 2 days a week and then 3 days a week driving to completely different cities. So the commute isn't consistent, and so that's something we do different. The lapse in time between the first survey and the follow-up survey was about a year and a half. The advantage is it gave us more time to try to activate change, but I think it kind of skewed the results a little bit. So what did we learn? In the pre-survey, we learned that the majority of the employees live less than 10 miles from work, which is excellent for trying to push for this kind of change. 63% of the respondents were completely unaware that Goose Island offers pre-tax transit benefits. That was a surprise to us and a great opportunity for change. 53% of employees said they'd be willing to change their mode of commute if barriers were addressed. And there was a big interest in working from home and biking to work. So the top barrier, I think, exists for a lot of organizations is the need to have a car to get to other locations during the day. So that's meetings at other facilities, that's visiting our wholesalers, visiting our clients, and that was a big issue for a lot of people. So we took the information we got from that pre-survey. The environmental sustainability team had a really great brainstorming session where we discussed some of the things that MPC put forward for us, some of the suggestions, and then we talked about the politics in our organization, the culture of our organization, and the capital outlay for some of the changes, and we came up with a list of things that we wanted to pursue. We wanted to be more bike-friendly. We wanted to look at an emergency ride home program. We wanted to push for more awareness of the benefits that were already there. We wanted to expand our Green Steps alternative transportation program, get more people involved. We wanted to look into car sharing. There were some safety concerns with one of our facilities. It was a dark street that people had to walk down, and that made a lot of people uncomfortable, especially when most of the year it's dark when you get to work and dark when you leave. And we were looking at a subsidy for a CTA Metro Pass. So we went after all of these aggressively. Different people in the team spearheaded different initiatives, and some of them came to fruition and some of them didn't. management wasn't ready to commit to the emergency ride home program or the subsidy for the CTA Metro Pass. But we were able to implement several things. The barriers for biking to work, when we really started to talk to people, were really low. Some people didn't want to leave their bike because where the bike rack was we're in kind of a rough neighborhood, and where the bike rack was out of the field of vision. So people didn't want to leave their bike. So we moved the bike rack 15 feet, and people put their bike on it. The bathrooms, the women's bathroom, the shower had been kind of neglected, and it was kind of yucky. Fresh coat of paint, new shower curtain, suddenly people were willing to use it. We increased the number of bike educational and tune-up events. So we've had some lunch and learns. We had the Spider Monkeys come in and some other organizations. We have tune-ups, I think like every 3 months or so. The company paid for a repair kit. It's, we take over the loading dock for a half hour during the lunch hour. People bring in their bikes. We help them change flats, address issues like that. And it also sets the tone that this is part of the company culture. And I think that's almost the most important thing. We moved the Green Steps program to be in line with the City of Chicago Bike to Work Week in June. So we could take all the great programming that they put together and sort of build on that to try to get more excitement and more energy behind it. We re-promoted the transit benefits. It used to be something that people got a piece of paper and that like giant stack of stuff you get when you're hired. So you're trying to figure out your 401k and which doctor you can go to, and oh, here's this thing about transit. Now every year when we re-up the health insurance, there's a separate communication about transit benefits, which is very helpful because a lot can change in a year. Something that didn't make sense for you a year before suddenly might be a good option. And we have a formalized telework policy, which is fantastic. So it's project-based. So with the manager's approval, project-based, you can work from home or from a separate facility. And that's been a really great thing, and many people take advantage of that. We can't take credit for this, but it did happen. It's because we hired those extra 15 people. But we are now in an office location that's right on Ashland, so we can see the green line, well lit, and I think a lot more people are comfortable taking the train now instead of driving because of that. So in the post survey, we did the online and the paper version again. Response rate wasn't quite as awesome, but not as many people remember taking the first survey, so that's kind of where I think either they had forgotten or some of those were our new employees. But the big story of success for us here is the awareness increase. One of the questions we put in the first survey was, does Goose Island have an environmental sustainability team? And basically the people on the team and our managers answered yes, and it was it was really bad. When we did the post survey, people were aware of the team. They were aware of the programs that we had out there, and they were saying that they were going to participate in them. So also the pre-tax benefit, people were more aware of that, which was a big win for us. So we've got more people participating in the programs we've put out there. So we're taking that success, and we're taking that awareness and that fortifying of that green culture and the introduction of the green culture to all those new employees, and we're building on that. We're looking into Divvy membership for our employees right now. We've increased the availability of the bike tune-ups and the repair supplies. We've added some bike racks too. We're including the transit benefit information and information on the sustainability team in the new hire training. We're working on getting that involved, so when you learn all the rules, all the safety, someone actually sits across from you and talks to you about these things. And we're trying to make the Green Steps Alternative Transportation Program bigger, better, bolder. So I think we're doing questions at the end, but I just want to thank the Metropolitan Planning Council for this opportunity because it really helped us see what some of those barriers were, and this group of individual employees who all have different jobs and don't have a background in this type of planning, it helped us take our organization to the next level, and we're still on that journey. So thank you.
And Kate is correct. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, so any questions that you have or think of along the way, jot them down on the agenda, on your hand, and we'll get to those. Tom is not here yet. Tom is here. Tom has arrived from Atlanta, and boy, are his arms tired. Come on over, Tom. Tom Cherney's with URS, and as I mentioned in the introductions, we're going to learn a little bit about some of the other programs around the country that Chicago might model off of, and a little bit. Now, Tom, you weren't here for the intro, so I need to tell you this is your batter's box right here, so that the camera can keep an eye on you. Okay? All right. So come on over in here. I'll turn the mic over to you, and you're all queued up and ready to go.
Can everybody hear me without this? I have to use the mic, okay. Well, let me tell you, nothing will wake you up in the morning like an aborted takeoff. Has anybody been through an aborted takeoff before? Yeah. That'll get your attention, that's for sure. So my apologies for getting here a little bit late, but Delta did their best, and the Orange Line did its best to get me here as quickly as I could. Again, my name is Tom Cerny. I'm Director of Transportation Demand Management Services for the URS Corporation. As far as I know, we're the largest provider of TDM program management anywhere. The orange represents the areas we are currently serving. We currently provide the oversight and management of 9 different commuter assistance programs or safe routes to school programs around the country. I won't go into any great detail on all of these. I will be here afterwards to answer any detailed questions, but just briefly, Mass Rides is a statewide program in Massachusetts. We took a program that had been run by the same nonprofit for 27 years and turned it into a program that was statewide, brought more advancements to the commuters that were using the services, and greatly expanded the scope of the services. You'll see that we work with 450 employers and about 14,000 participants. What's interesting about those numbers, and might be applicable to the Chicago area, is that very few of those are actually in the downtown core. What we found is that the downtown core is so transit-friendly and so difficult to get into from a driving standpoint that people have pretty much figured out how to beat the system as best they could, and they really didn't need our help as much as the people out in the suburbs where those type of mode options were not as available. The Clean Air Campaign in Atlanta is TDM on steroids. They're pumping somewhere around $11 million a year into the TDM program. We currently provide the majority of staff to the Clean Air Campaign, which is a separate nonprofit organization working in 22 counties with over 1,600 employer partners. When you get that kind of money, you also get a significant amount of scrutiny and accountability, which is appropriate. Probably the most evaluated program in the country has been proven to show that they're pulling off 1.5 million miles a day off of the road due to these programs, which is larger than some commuter assistance programs pull off in an entire year. Commuter Services of Pennsylvania is not where you would think a significant program would exist. We're talking about the Lancaster, Harrisburg, York, Reading area. It's not exactly Chicago-type congestion. Their idea of congestion is maybe if they have to sit through 2 or 3 light cycles. But to their credit, they do not want to become a large urban area with massive traffic. So they've set up a nonprofit organization specifically to coordinate TDM services in that large area. The reason they did that is because there was a bit of paranoia to give any one transit agency or chamber or MPO the lead role in the provision of those services. So they set up a separate nonprofit, which then contracts out all of the staffing of their organization through a competitive process, and we've been fortunate enough to have been selected there. To give you some idea, though, again, there's an awful lot of horse and buggies in that area. There's also an awful lot of semi-trucks. I've been told that 70% of the U.S. population can be reached from that area in one day's truck drive. So it's a very popular place for large warehouses and such. But again, it's not Chicago-type congestion, yet 15,000 people are in that rideshare database looking for a better way to get to and from work. Club Ride is our sexy program out in Las Vegas. Over 26,000 people participating in that commuter assistance program. A large percentage of those are on a 1.5 strip of road. There's over 78,000 employees on the Las Vegas Strip, and we work with every large employer along there. Kind of interesting working with Cirque du Soleil, Blue Man Group, and places like that. You meet some pretty interesting folks. But they're also big on tracking, and what we've set up there is touchscreen kiosks in most of the major employers, as well as an app that allows people to track how they get to and from work. The more they track, the greater their chances of winning prizes, and it gives us up-to-the-day information on how people are getting to and from work. CT Rides is the statewide program in Connecticut. We were successful in our pursuit of that work a couple of years ago. We took over a program that had been run by 3 nonprofits for in excess of 30 years. By combining all of those programs into one, we're saving the state DOT over $1 million a year. What also is unique about that program is that we provide the customer service function for the Shoreline East Railroad as part of our contract. So if you're on the Shoreline East Railroad and it's 19 degrees outside and your train is 5 seconds late and you want to scream at somebody, you're screaming at a URS employee. So then what does that mean for Chicago? Like I said, I can answer details about any of those programs or others that we're operating afterwards. But certainly, based on the people I've met here and the knowledge I have of the area, there's opportunities for better efficiency, simplified marketing, and I'd like to think much greater mode shift. So some of you have probably seen some of this presentation. I've given bits and pieces of it over the years. So what have we learned through this whole process? And I kind of subtitle it, What I Wish Somebody Would Have Told Me 24 years ago. I've been in the business now 24 years, and gosh, if somebody had just pulled me aside and said, Tom, this is what you're going to encounter, it would have certainly helped an awful lot and saved me a lot of headache. So I will go through these just bit by bit, get this one out of the way. As a private consultant that runs these type of programs, I might as well just say it, I'm a big, big believer in the privatization of commuter assistance programs. My first job was as a bike ped coordinator in Orlando, Florida, working for an MPO. I then worked for a large hospital, setting up a commuter assistance for them. I was a TMA director. Everybody know what a TMA is? Okay. For the Transportation Management Association, a small nonprofit that does TDM, commuter assistance type work. I also worked as a regional planning manager, and it wasn't until I joined the consultant side of things and saw it from that fire under the seat perspective, I didn't really appreciate how much could get done. When you know you've got to stand in front of a selection committee every 3 to 5 years and justify your continued existence in that role, it keeps it pretty warm. It also allows us to come in neutrally. An awful lot of these type of programs get way too political. As a consultant, we're going to provide the services that you all or who our client is looking for based on what the contractual obligations are. We're not here to, there's so many instances over the years where a nonprofit or a city or something like that will get dollars from a DOT to run a commuter assistance program on behalf of the DOT and then show up 2 weeks later blasting the DOT at a public hearing. We're not going to do that. And I think as a consulting firm that has over 54,000 employees around the world, we offer a tremendous amount of flexibility. We've yet to have a contract that didn't come up with, where the client didn't come up with something extra that they needed that they didn't foresee when they first wrote the contract. Being a large firm with a tremendous amount of expertise in transit, sustainability, engineering, we've been able to provide those services without having to go through a whole new contract process. I don't know this for a fact, but I've been told that this represents the number of logos that the average American sees in a given day. Now, I'm sure it's very easy for you to find the one that was recently promoted here in Chicago about driving less. Anyone? The reason I bring this up is that I'm convinced that TDM advertising is generally wasted. There's just, in very few instances, is there enough money available to a TDM program to have any noticeable impact on mode shift. Atlanta tried it. They were spending in excess of $7 million a year to get people out of their car. They achieved something. They had the same brand recognition as Coca-Cola in Atlanta. As you can imagine, that's pretty significant. It got to a point where statistically you couldn't get it any better. But they had no proof whatsoever that anyone shifted a mode because of that advertising. It wasn't until they shifted that money into incentives and into a structured employer outreach program that they started to see the mode shift that we talked about earlier. I'd much rather see the money put into outreach and incentives. And also, we found generally that public relation type activities is money better spent than actually buying hard advertising. Now, of course, you may have to buy some advertising to get the good PR, but... And I'd also like to add on here, please, let's not get into an argument over if we need another name for carpooling or ride sharing or something like that. Every year or so, there's something will pop up where people start talking about a new name for it. We don't have enough money to rebrand carpooling or ride sharing. I think people will figure out really what it is. You can buy people out of their car. We've proven it. In Atlanta, Birmingham, and in New Jersey, we've launched something roughly called Cash for Commuters. I'm intimately involved with the program in Atlanta because I was responsible for QA, QC for the first 2,200 people that went through the program. What we did there is we offered to pay people $3 a day up to 90 days if they would give up driving alone. And the way we verified that was, one, we called everybody that was signing up, and we also called their supervisor. You had to have your supervisor's endorsement and support to make this mode shift. That cleaned out all the rascals. We found all kinds of people trying to scam the system, but when word got out pretty quickly that not only were they going to get a call, but their boss was going to get a call, we greatly, greatly reduced the shenanigans that were attempted. Again, being in Atlanta has been really, really rewarding because they have the resources to evaluate how well their programs do. And what came out of this is the average payout was about $141 a person. So that sounds like a lot of money. And there was probably some people sweating a bit over that amount of expenditure. But the Clean Air Campaign and the evaluation group that was hired by the Georgia DOT monitored these people who participated in these programs. And 2 years out, after the incentives had stopped, still more than 50% of the people were using the alternative mode as their primary way of getting to and from work. So then you start taking $141 and spreading it out over 2 years. The cost per trip is minuscule. If you're looking to start a program or to reorganize a program, I strongly suggest going big. Go big or go home. The graphic on top pretty closely represents situations that we've encountered as we've set up programs, where you have multiple people, multiple funding agencies, multiple stakeholders all wanting a piece of the pie, and you get an awful lot of congestion just in the emails between one another. A single point of accountability has proven to be very, very helpful. It makes it very clear for the folks that are contracting for this type of work. And if things go wrong, like I said, if it's a competitive process that's been set up, there's going to be plenty of people who would love to have your job. So you tend to stay on top of things. We mentioned TMAs before. In some cases, TMAs work. But I think that the better solution there is to set up a regional or statewide program that has what I call TMIs, Transportation Management Initiatives, otherwise known as a branch office. You really don't need more committees. You really don't need more bylaws. You really don't need more boards of directors. What you need is cars off the road. And you can simply set up a branch office in congested areas if the need exists. Voluntary programs are better. Nobody likes to be told what to do. There are plenty of good reasons that employers and stakeholders would want to take part in these type of programs. It just takes a little bit longer to get them to understand that. I think California and New Jersey are two great examples of what happens when you have a mandate and you take the mandate away. Story I heard is that in New Jersey, the TDM groups got all of a half-hour notice that the governor was going to rescind the mandate, and were not really set up to handle doing outreach in a proactive way. They were set up to handle outreach in a reactive way. Let's never forget that commuter assistance is a TDM. Commuter assistance and TDM are a people-based business. I often find that potential clients and existing clients get way too focused on technology. There's a lot of cool stuff that's going on out there right now, and it is an important part of it. But let's not forget that it's about a relationship between the group that's promoting this type of stuff, the commuters, the employers, and the stakeholders. One of the things that's worked very well for us is our mode neutrality approach. Simply put, we don't go in with the idea that we're going to tell an employer or a commuter what to do. We're going to listen to their needs and then meet those needs by customizing our programs. I can say this as I'm a AICP. Any other AICPs in here? Okay. And I also was I guess now I'm kind of an administrator, but my dad was in sales, so I guess I'm kind of salesy. But generally, these folks do a fantastic job of setting up commuter assistance programs or safe routes to school programs. And they have a fantastic kickoff celebration, and 2 weeks later, there's crickets chirping in the office because nobody's calling, or the website just is getting no hits or whatever. Us planners and administrators, we don't like hearing no. And sometimes we get frustrated and we start to change the programs way too quickly. This is a sales business. Have any of you ever had the sell me the pen test? In our interview process, depending how well it's going, sometimes I'll just slide a pen across the desk and say, sell that to me. And I shut up. There's some awkward silence and stuff. So if that happened to you, I'm not going to pull anybody out here, but just think about what you would do if I slid that pen across the desk and said, sell me the pen. The correct answer is something along the lines of, well, Mr. Cerny, before I can do that, what are you looking for in a writing instrument? Or what are you looking for in a communication tool? That was the best answer we ever got. Because how in the world do you know if I need a pen even without asking questions to know my needs? So if you don't have people with that type of mentality out there talking to employers and commuters, your success rate will not be as good. Let's stick to core services too. I mentioned this earlier that sometimes planners and administrators get a bit frustrated or just bored with what they're doing and they head off on all kinds of tangents. There's grunt work involved in what we're doing here. It's not rocket science, but it does take a lot of work and persistence. You will get told no 90% of the time. You just got to stick with it. That tangential work can kill a program if you just get way too spread out. Let's not forget this is about getting people to give up driving alone and switching to an alternative. I'd like to get my hands on the neck of whoever came up with the idea that we need to be a membership-based organization. Who would ever ask employees, who would ever hire a group of outreach people to go knock on doors of employers to get employers to pitch in money to build a road? Just wouldn't do that. I mean, the roads are seen, and transit in many cases is just seen as part of the transportation system. TDM should not be an outlier. We should just be part of that balanced system. The programs that we have should be funded as fairly as transit and road systems are. We don't need to be spending all of our time going out and getting members. In fact, when I was at TMA director, I spent way more than 50% of my time just trying to raise membership dollars, not getting cars off the road. The last thing I'm preaching about here is that I really think that nationally we need to get standardized evaluation measures. For all intent and purposes, forest fires, what we're battling when it comes to traffic. The squirt gun is what they've given us to fight it with. I mean, that's the reality of it. There's a cruder version of this, but we won't get into that. And so we just have to accept that this time we're just going to have that squirt gun. So we need a standardized evaluation procedure so we can figure out what really works and what doesn't. There could be somebody up in Wisconsin that's knocking the door down with this kind of stuff, and we don't know about it because we can't compare what we've done, say, in Boston to that person. If we're only going to get a squirt gun, we need to know where we're going to squirt. And we may not be able to stop the forest fire, but we can certainly save a few saplings. All right, so just I'll wrap it up real quickly here. There's plenty of things that I think about when it comes to the future of TDM. I just came up with 5 here, just something for you all to chew on. There's a lot of instability when it comes to technology and TDM. A lot of the cool apps, a lot of the cool ride-sharing software type things, the cool dynamic stuff, quite a few of those are run by mom and pops out of a 3rd bedroom. And that's all fine. I'm all about people getting things going, but if you're going to invest several $1 million into something, what happens if those people just close their doors or decide to do something different? There's a number of apps that have come out on the market. I just saw an article about somebody writing about stuff that was happening in Washington, D.C., where apps just quietly disappear. I don't know if any of you have noticed that. Like you load up the coolest app on your phone and then it just stops working. That's especially prevalent in TDM, it seems. And the bottom line is it's tough to make money. Nobody's really figured out how to make a lot of money off of this. And it's also fighting the whatever is new instantly becomes old as soon as it comes out. So let's not get caught up on technology. I also have concerns or questions about the sustainability of van pooling long term. You look up in that top corner, we started out with the big 15 passengers, then they went to 10 passengers and kind of blew through those and went down to minivans. Now they're also selling these SUVs. Wouldn't that be funny if the savior to van pooling was an SUV? Who knows where the future holds, something with wings and rockets on it. But there's an awful lot of influences going on right now that are very powerful. And I'm not sure the concept of gathering 7 people into one vehicle at one time to go one place is something that's going to be growing in any significant amount in the future. Ride matching data, if we can get that standardized on a national basis, that would be very, very helpful. There's so many ride-sharing systems out there right now. If we could get that to where it was, so that rideshare databases could share information, that would be very, very helpful. There is a new kayak system. Is anybody familiar with kayak? It's a travel system. Well, there's a new software out there called Ride Scout, another up-and-coming firm, that is trying to do that for TDM or for any travel. So you could type in, you want to go from point A to point B, and it would give you all the options. We're hopeful that that will exist. One of the other problems we have with ride matching systems is there's just way too many of them. I just, before I came here, punched in Carpool Atlanta, and we don't run the rideshare database there, just for to go on the record. But it doesn't show up on the first page because others have bought their way to that first page, or for whatever reason, it just isn't there. So the biggest rideshare database in the metro Atlanta area, which, frankly, you probably know better how many it has in it than I do, 30,000 or something like that, is not showing up on the first page of Google. I used to, kind of a transportation geek story here, I used to sign up for ride-sharing databases, as many as I could find, and in the 10 years or so I've been doing that, I've only gotten 2 matches. I think there's a greater opportunity for TDM in a public information role. Again, I can answer more questions about these afterwards, but one of the things I think that we're missing out on is when there's big road construction projects, quite a bit of money gets put into public information efforts. And typically you'll end up with a meeting kind of like the one in the picture there, where there's one guy like me standing up in the front with a bunch of boards explaining the situation. Well, I'd like to think that we should set up our TDM programs that the outreach people who are trained in all of these alternative modes and such could also be trained on these construction projects and provide the information to the employers and the commuters directly, as opposed to asking them to come to us. And finally, this one keeps me up at night, is the MAP 21. Everybody familiar with that? Okay. There's going to be much greater accountability, or at least they keep telling us there's going to be much greater accountability. And I'm here to tell you, in the TDM world, there's a lot of warm fuzzy going on. Not enough programs, going back to that standardized measurement stuff, there's just not enough accountability associated with what we do. So if you all are interested in getting a significant program going, I would make sure that accountability is a key part of that from the very, very beginning. All right, again, just kind of summing it up, if you're looking to be successful in TDM, what's worked for us is efficiency, like to make it as efficient as possible, add accountability at all turns, make sure your programs are valued. That means it's a little bit more than just feeling good about how many coffee mugs you handed out, but you're actually pulling cars off the road. And accountability, and regardless of whatever system gets set up, some type of competitive contract will be in your best interest. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom, and I know you had to rush through that a little bit, but we did want to and do have some time left at the end of the program for Q&A. We'll be out of here by 1:30. But please, we have a roving microphone. Raise your hand. Please wait for the microphone to get to you. Anyone in the middle here? And just state your name and brief question, please, so we can get to as many folks as possible.
Yeah, my name is Jack Seavey, and are any of y'all familiar with the individualized marketing program here in Chicago? A little bit. It's a 5-year program that CDOT is doing with a team of consultants to reach out to low-income communities and give them awareness measures about transportation alternatives in the region that are available to them, encouragement and education. And I'm wondering what your feeling is on the importance of TDM kind of programs for low-income communities.
As equally as important as it is for any other community.
Grab that microphone, Tom.
Certainly, at least as important as it is for any other community. I think it's just part of going back to that balanced transportation system. Certainly, there's different challenges associated with those, with the lower income areas and economic situations. But the type of programs that are going on like that individualized marketing. I have to say I'm a little skeptical as to what the long-term impact of those type of programs will be, but I certainly wish them the best. I'd like to see them succeed because it's one of the newer ways to approach TDM that I've seen in the last several years.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
My name is Lindsay Bailey. I'm with CMAP. And I was wondering if any of you have had experience with a TDM program that was combined with an increased cost for parking or with parking benefits like cash-out programs.
I haven't actually been involved with something like that, but my company looked into doing some type of, it would be a parking benefit or vice versa. You can actually have, instead of, making the less parking spaces there, or you can penalize people for parking. That we sort of discussed between ourselves, and it wasn't really the option at the time. That's really all I know as far as my experience on that.
We have unfortunately plentiful street parking, and so we've talked about ways to try to reduce the availability of that, but we're unfortunately in one of the few areas in Chicago where it's very convenient to park.
When I was the employee transportation coordinator at that large hospital in Florida, we took the approach of, instead of penalizing, we paid. I think it was $2 a day for people who would park, that use the shuttle system and things like that. And that had a pretty noticeable impact. Frankly, though, the more noticeable impact was we provided preferential parking to carpoolers. And that had a far greater impact than actually paying people.
People like to park up front. Any other questions? Yes, right up here.
Hi, this is for Kate and David. When you were looking at the sustainability program in general, your company strikes me very closely held on the small end of things. Could you translate that to the broader group of employers, which are medium and large sized businesses? That how those efforts, how your efforts are different or tailored for that application, and what you see that works in a broader set of employer initiatives like this.
I think a big thing is it needs to be employee-led. I think that if you have management and HR agree to do a program and then try to feed it down to employees, that's going to get rejected very quickly. Because the environmental sustainability team is made up of people from every department, people know those people. So when someone approaches you about it or sends an email, it doesn't feel like it's coming down to you. It's coming across to you. And I think that is true no matter how large or small the organization is.
I'd have to agree with that. Everything that I've been given for incentive-wise has been strictly from the president. It's been, directly out of his pocket, as I mentioned earlier, and not everyone can do that, obviously. We're doing our best in the infrastructure-wise. If you can provide safe streets, safe biking, that's one step. But I'd have to agree with that it has to kind of come down from the employer, just in general, that they have to be on board with everything. And be at least for the movement that everyone's going for.
Great, thank you. We've got, where did my mic go? Here, raise your hand up high. Yep, coming through.
This is a question for the panel, but more specifically to David. You mentioned the incentives that you were giving for bikers. Were there any incentives awarded for other modes? And if so, were they equally as effective as you saw with the biking program?
There was no cash incentives. There's incentives like I mentioned, we have a commuter breakfast. It's nothing huge, but it's kind of just a morale booster for people. We have the pre-tax benefit program that's also supported slightly with our president's funds. And right now, we're just trying to get people to, see participation-wise, rather than, looking into what benefits we can do in the future is probably, that's more of like a second step in my mind. We're trying to get how many people are interested first, and then maybe bump up the benefits later and see what we can do.
Kate, anything to add? Okay. Any other questions? Oh, right up in front. Hold on one second, Edith, the mic is coming.
I had a question about the 75 cents a mile. How does HR justify that? And I was thinking that would be a health benefit, obviously, but has there been any dialogue with your health insurance providers? And then on the other side, I was wondering, have there been any biking-related accidents? Has there really been a payoff in terms of health benefits? Is what the question was.
Yeah, we don't have real numbers. They tell us that there is benefits from our health insurance providers, but they haven't actually provided us with how much an exact monetary savings of that. Maybe it's just the fact that people are healthier is enough of an incentive. As far as the accidents go, yes, there has been a few accidents. We make sure to, we tell people to ride safe on the right side of the road, and we provide all the assistance, wear your helmet, type of things like that. As far as liability goes, it's not on the company when something like that happens, because it's considered that's the way you're getting to work. You're not actually at work. So any type of biking relating accidents is sort of on the commuter.
Good question. Okay, one back into the middle, and then if there's no more, we'll wrap it up.
Going back out to the umbrella view again, this is probably mostly for Thomas, but I saw that you've worked with a few state DOTs on some safe routes to school. What do you feel like is the most successful role for the state DOT and TDM programs?
Funding. Funding and leadership, I suppose. Because they oversee not only the funding of the TDM program, but so many other aspects of transportation. They carry a pretty heavy stick and a pretty tasty carrot, too. So I think just getting behind it and accepting, or not accepting, making it a part of a balanced transportation, a balanced, comprehensive transportation system is the most important thing that they can do. It should not be the outlier.
That's actually a great question for me to segue into some of my closing remarks. I mentioned already you have a copy of our final report at your seat. Within that report, we, of course, talk about the program and the pilot that we've just been speaking about this afternoon. I mentioned at the beginning our recommendation that Chicagoland explore a regional mode-neutral organization to adopt TDM for the region, issue an RFP, contract with a third-party provider, and move the program forward. There is interest from the RTA. I will also say there's interest from IDOT and playing that sort of oversight role of the program and learning and participating with RTA in this region so that they can roll it out to other regions throughout the state. So I think we have generated, and in no small part from the efforts over the last 2 years, good interest around the region in this program moving forward. So we are hopeful at MPC, and this is going to be our task over the first quarter of next year, getting this project and program up and running. So with that, before you leave, we will thank our providers, our panelists once more, but I did want to tell you about the little surprise in your bag. Tim, why don't you come on up, since Tim, again, was so crucial in this program and also in today's event. Tell folks what they have in store for them under their share.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks to everybody for attending. Since today is St. Nicholas Day, you all get a bag courtesy of PACE with some promo things in there. ICF also has some material in there. And one bag has 2 Skydeck Willis Tower tickets, courtesy of U.S. Equities. And another bag has, courtesy of Andrew Sargis, who's one of our provider members, has a Chicago water taxi season pass for 2014 and a hat. And I told Andrew, I hope you don't win your own pass. But so take a look. Don't throw the bag out.
And then I would also, we should have held the box lunches at the door and had you fill out your evaluation before you came in, but then you wouldn't have had. Please fill out your evaluation before you leave. We definitely use those for planning future events. Let's all thank our panelists once again. Thank you so much. You're all welcome to hang out in the room a little while. We've got the space. If you want to ask some questions or network amongst yourself, please feel free to do so. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.